Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. I'm going to start off today's episode of Mingles with Jingles with another Ubisoft. Honestly, Ubisoft at this point, they're the gift that just keeps on giving. In fact, you know what I'm going to do this time? Rather than just tell you the latest way that Ubisoft have screwed up, I'm going to give you 3 Ubisoft screwed up again scenarios. 2 of which are true, and 1 of which are just made up on the spot. See if you can guess which is true and which is fake. Because Ubisoft just seem to be screwing up so predictably and reliably that honestly I believe at this point you could just make up any old shit about them and people would go, yep, that's Ubisoft. So here we go. Here are our 3 scenarios. And remember, 1 of them I'm just making up on the spot. See if you can tell which one it is. Back in 2011, Ubisoft released a game called From Dust. Wouldn't be surprised if you'd never heard of it. Now at the time, Ubisoft and other game publishers were attracting a lot of flack from the gaming community for their insistence on requiring you to have an always-on internet connection to play single-player games, like From Dust. The reason for this was, well, it was to combat piracy. This was their form of DRM, digital rights management. However, prior to the release of From Dust, they announced, and I'm quoting directly here from company spokesperson Alex Money, I can confirm that From Dust will not require online connection to play the single-player campaign and challenges. And the community rejoiced, because everybody hated always-online DRM. Fast forward to the actual release of the game, and imagine everybody's surprise when the game did come with DRM and did require an always-online internet connection in order to play the single-player campaign and the challenges. The company then released another statement saying, we are aware of some confusion over the inclusion of DRM in the release of From Dust on PC. Confusion. Yeah, that would be a bit of an understatement. They followed this bombshell up with another statement saying, to prevent any ongoing confusion, we would like to clarify that From Dust PC will release with DRM requiring a one-time only online activation, after which you will be able to play the game offline. Okay, a one-time only activation, after which you will be able to play the game offline. Okay, so it's not DRM free the way they promised. So they did lie to everybody. But it's not that bad. I mean, a one-time only activation. I mean, that's kind of okay, isn't it? Except the devil, as always, is in the details. It was a one-time activation, but it was one-time activation per session. So you could technically play the single-player campaign and challenge modes without an internet connection. But you needed to have an internet connection to access them in the first place every time you logged into the game. So it's not quite the same as I can confirm that From Dust will not require online connection to play the single-player campaign and challenges, and there's no DRM in this game, because there was DRM in the game, and you did require an internet connection in order to fire the game up in the first place, regardless of whether or not you shut the connection down afterwards and continue to play offline in single-player. Good job, Ubisoft. Scenario number 2. Does everybody remember NFTs, non-fungible tokens? For the benefit of anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, NFTs were supposed to be the next big thing in gaming, but the only people excited about them were the publishers, because they represented an opportunity for them to make all of the money in the world. Short version of what an NFT actually is. They're supposedly unique things that you can own online. And the uniqueness is guaranteed by, technically, well, we'll call it an ownership license that is keyed to you and you only on the blockchain. So as an example, when these things first appeared, and initially everybody was going wild about them, and I think, this period lasted about 2 weeks until people realised just how shit they were. So for example, all kinds of celebrities were doing shitty little pixel art pictures on Microsoft Paint. We're not talking about classic works of art here or anything. People were knocking stuff out on MS Paint in 5 minutes and putting them up for auction and keying them on the blockchain, and people were actually paying. I think in some cases, I think Snoop Dogg did some shitty little pixel art piece of crap, and somebody paid $60,000 for it. But they were the unique owner because it was registered to them on the blockchain. The thing is, It was just a shitty little piece of pixel art churned out in MS Paint. It didn't mean nobody could copy it. Of course you can. Just right-click and save image as, and there you go. You've got your own shitty version of whatever Snoop Dogg shat out over the course of 10 minutes during an afternoon. But the games publishers were going wild, just imagining the opportunities for monetization. Imagine a version of something like Overwatch where you could get your own unique version of one of the heroes that was subtly different to the others, and you were the only person who could ever have that particular hero, as long as you were prepared to put your hand in your pocket for it. You can imagine why the publishers were going nuts about this. Unfortunately, it relied on, well, how can we put this? In order to work, in order to get this kind of NFT monetization into their games, you kind of had to rely on all of your customers, or at least the vast majority of your customers. How can I put this politely? You had to rely on them all being mouth-breathing, window-licking morons. And sure, there are all kinds of high-profile cases. I've reported on a few myself where certain unique items in games have been going for astronomical amounts of money, but these are all one-offs. You know, you can't sustain a monetization policy on 2 or 3 people buying unique stuff. You need everybody to buy into the idea. And nobody was that stupid. So the games publishers were going crazy telling everybody that NFTs were the next big thing. Not because NFTs were the next big thing, but because they wanted us to think NFTs were the next big thing. In the same way that Electronic Arts president famously once said, nobody wants to play single-player games anymore. And he didn't say that because nobody wanted to play single-player games anymore. He said that because they didn't want to make single-player games anymore, because they couldn't monetize single-player games in the way that they could monetize multiplayer games as a service. So, you know, they weren't saying it because it was true, they were saying it because they wanted everybody to think it was true. And the same thing happened with NFTs. The problem, of course, the vast majority of people weren't dumb enough to fall for it. So the publishers basically wasted a ton of money trying to shoehorn NFTs into games that they were currently developing, and also starting development of games that were going to be based entirely around NFTs. And it very, very quickly became apparent that this just wasn't going to fly. Nobody was interested. 4 years after, every other games developer and publisher had realised that this just wasn't going to work. People just weren't quite as stupid as they had hoped we were. Ubisoft, presumably thinking, oh, we're first to market here. Nobody else is releasing NFT games. We're going to make all the money in the world. Yep, Ubisoft released an NFT game. If I was to tell you that one of the biggest games publishers in the world, Ubisoft, released a new game 4 months ago, and it wasn't Assassin's Creed Shadows, you know, back when it was originally supposed to be released. It was a game called Champions Tactics, Grimoria Chronicles. It came out on PC 4 months ago. That's right, Ubisoft released a PC game 4 months ago, and you have never heard of it. Because it was an NFT game, and it crashed faster than Concorde did. To absolutely nobody's surprise, except perhaps Ubisoft. And our third and final Ubisoft story, and remember, one of these is a lie that I just made up on the spot, see if you can tell which one it is. Ubisoft have been coming back to Steam and adding Steam achievements to a lot of old games, like for example Watch Dogs 2 and Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. They've also added achievements to Assassin's Creed 3. Now there might be a little bit of confusion here because there are actually 2 versions of Assassin's Creed 3 on Steam. One of which you can buy, that would be the 2019 Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered, and one of which you cannot buy on Steam. That would be the original 2012 Assassin's Creed 3. So they've added Steam achievements to one of the 2 versions of Assassin's Creed 3 that are released on Steam, even though only one of them is actually available on Steam. Can you guess which of these 2 versions of Assassin's Creed 3 now has Steam achievements, and which one doesn't? And if you think that it might be the version of Assassin's Creed 3 that you can actually get on Steam, you clearly don't know Ubisoft very well. That's right. They just added Steam achievements to a game that you can no longer buy on Steam. Oh, Ubisoft. So anyway, those are our three Oh Ubisoft stories for the week. One of them I made up on the spot, two of them are actually true. Can you guess which is which? I have a confession to make. I lied to you. All three are 100% true. Although I still maintain that the premise is good, I genuinely believe that Ubisoft have screwed up so reliably and consistently, and so incredibly stupidly, that anybody at this point could just make up some crazy, wild, outlandish shit about dumb stuff that Ubisoft did. And people would just go, yep, that's Ubisoft. No need to Google that. I believe that they would do that. Because, well, I mean, facts are stranger than fiction, at least as far as this company's concerned. In other news, have you ever had to call a support helpline in order to get, well, support with a problem, and gotten the feeling that they're intentionally keeping you waiting in an effort to just make you go away? Surely you're just being paranoid, right? Yeah, maybe not. I mean, generally my first option whenever I need tech support is to use the website, to use the help articles and read the frequently asked questions lists to see if I can actually resolve the problem there and then without having to call somebody and speak to somebody. In fact, actually, the first thing that I try to do is I just Google the problem to see if it's usually somebody on Reddit. Reddit is just amazing for this sort of thing. If you're having any kind of issue, generally you're going to find the best solution on Reddit. And if I can't find the solution on Reddit, then I try the manufacturer's support website. And if all other options fail, I call them up. And that's usually when I hear, we are experiencing unusually high call volume at the moment. Please hold the line. One of our representatives will be with you in about 15 minutes. Which is the reason why actually calling the support helpline is my last resort option. And it turns out that's entirely intentional, at least if you're Hewlett-Packard. And if Hewlett-Packard are doing it, you can bet the rest of them are too. An internal Hewlett-Packard memo just got leaked confirming that if you live in the UK, France, Italy and Germany, at least those four countries, probably more, if you call Hewlett-Packard's customer support helpline, the first thing that you'll hear is an automated voice saying, we are experiencing longer waiting times and we apologise for the inconvenience. The next available representative will be with you in about 15 minutes. Now that seems like an oddly specific estimation of how long you have to wait before you can speak to somebody, because every time you call them up they say we're experiencing a high traffic volume and somebody will be with you in about 15 minutes. And the reason for that is because even if you are the only person calling Hewlett-Packard at that moment, you hear this message and they put you on hold for 15 minutes, and they're doing that precisely in an effort to get you to go away. And obviously the reason they're doing this is that even though a lot of these major companies have now long since outsourced all of their tech support to call centres in India, which is ridiculously cheap, apparently it's not cheap enough. Because, well, there's nothing cheaper than getting you to fix your own problem on the customer support website. So, yeah, next time you call a customer support helpline, even if you're the only person calling, even if there are customer support representatives on the line, ready and waiting to take your call, you're going to have to wait 15 minutes anyway. Moving on swiftly, Marvel Rivals. I've never played it, it's just not my sort of thing, but it's doing spectacularly well. It's actually now surpassed 40 million players. I mean, it turns out that for the publisher, NetEase, it's just a license to print money. The game almost didn't happen, by the way, because NetEase's CEO was so cheap he didn't want to pay the licensing fees to Disney to actually get the rights to use all of the Marvel superhero characters. But sanity prevailed, and as a result, this has been an insanely profitable game for NetEase. Their gross profits in the quarter that the game was released is $2.2 billion, and that's just in a quarter, right? That's not annual, that's just in 3 months. I mean, it's been printing astronomical amounts of money. Although, I mean, it was only $2.2 billion. It wasn't quite the $2.3 billion that the company earned in its previous quarter. They're going to have to start cutting corners. I mean, $2.2 billion per quarter. I mean, that's barely walking around money. So what do you think happened to the US-based development team that was responsible for making Marvel Rivals? You know, the game that just surpassed 40 million players and helped generate $2.2 billion in raw profit in a single quarter. Yep, they've all been fired. The entire team's been sacked. The studio's been closed. 2 days before, NetEase announced $2.2 billion in profits and more than 40 million players. The US development team responsible for that game have all received their marching orders. I want to say unbelievable, but well, this is sadly all too believable and also 100% true. And the reason for the cuts? Well, NetEase said that the cuts were necessary, and I quote, for organisational reasons and to optimise development efficiency for the game. So you optimise development efficiency for the game by firing the entire development team. I should clarify, by the way, NetEase hasn't fired the entire Marvel Rivals development team. They've fired the entire American Marvel Rivals development team. Most of the development of the game was actually done from their studios in China. They all still have their jobs. I suppose there are probably two reasons as to why the American development team just got shit-canned, whereas the Chinese one didn't, and one of those is kind of general. I mean, the game is out. It has been developed. All that remains is to continue support for it. So you could kind of take a cold mercenary look at it and say, well, you know, their work is done. Don't need them anymore. And also, it's entirely likely that the American development team had significantly higher salaries than the Chinese development team. So, yeah. Oh well, never mind. Sucks to be them. Great work on the game, guys. It's doing spectacularly well. You're probably expecting bonuses. Tough shit. Pack your stuff. You're sacked. Just being good at your job and producing successful and massively profitable games is no guarantee of long-term employment in the modern gaming industry. Well, anyway, on to what I at least hope is going to be some good news. I'm doing an Indiana Jones and the Great Circle playthrough at the moment, and it's a fantastic game, by the way. I mean, I have enjoyed every minute of it. And in the comments, a number of you have been asking whether or not I'm going to do a Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 playthrough, and I have been playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and it is amazingly good. And I have been recording. I currently have 1.5 terabytes of video footage, and I'm not even out of the game's starting area. There's just so much to do in it. And as soon as I finish the Indiana Jones playthrough, I will be starting Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And I realise that a lot of the reasons why people don't watch, because the numbers on the Indiana Jones playthrough are not great. Certainly not compared to World of Warships or World of Tanks. And I realise that a lot of people don't want to watch that sort of video because they're worried about spoilers. I don't think you have to worry about that with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. You could start playing it now, and by the end of the week probably still be further ahead through the story than I am, because I haven't been rushing through it. I've been taking my time. I want to enjoy everything that the game has to offer, and it really, really does have so much to offer. And unlike on my old system, where I had the fairly standard 2 terabytes of storage, and I had to start, when I was recording the Indiana Jones stuff, I had to actually start deleting games in order to make space for all of the recorded video. With 8 terabytes of SSD storage, running out of space really isn't an issue. So Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, once I'm done with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And a couple of other indie games as well, or demos of indie games that I've really been enjoying on Steam over Christmas and the New Year, which I'll probably be slipping in as one-offs here and there. There's some really, really good stuff out there. Most of it not coming from the AAA publishers. Yeah, I know, big surprise. So, yeah, that's it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope it's given you something to talk about. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.